Hello, happy Friday. Welcome, everybody. Good to see the room filling up. So happy to see you here in November. This is Rebecca Goldberg. I'm a co-facilitator for the Grantmakers for Out of School Time Impact Group with Kathleen Trapphagen. We're very excited to have you here to talk about this important topic around the workforce and the Power of Us Workforce Survey. We're joined by a great group of speakers who are involved with the survey. And really, this is a continuation of a conversation we've been having in this group over the last year around different challenges facing the field, and a top one being workforce challenges, whether that's due to the staffing shortages, due to burnout and stress from the pandemic, or the roles in general. To how do we better support and grow our staff? How do we grow leaders of color in the field? There's many layers to this, and one of the key pieces of information that we need is that we need more information about this workforce. We don't know necessarily why they've joined the field, where they've been before, what would keep them in this field, where they're hoping to go, what are the types of professional learning that they'd like to have access to. There's so much to learn about this essential workforce, and also all the settings that they're working in. So, we say out of school time as a really broad category of all the spaces that adults are working with young people, and generally outside of the classroom. And this survey is an opportunity to really think more broadly about that ecosystem. So, we're excited to learn more. Thank you for joining us. There's a role that we can each play in making this an effective study of the field. I'm joined here today with Karen Pittman, who's going to share more about the survey itself and why this is so significant. And she's going to really run the show today, but we're joined by a great group of folks. In addition to Karen, we have Jill Young from American Institutes for Research, and we've got Singh from the Wallace Foundation, and we've got Uzma Azhar from the Georgia Statewide Afterschool Network. And so we're going to hear more about the survey. We're going to hear strategies for promoting it, how you all can get involved. And then we're going to have time at the end to actually talk to each other and think about how might you be planning to use this data. And also, what are ways that you can each support this survey to get more responses from whatever seat you're sitting in. So thanks so much for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Karen from KP Catalyst.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all. I want to just start off by saying, as you're introducing yourself in the chat, this is a really exciting time in general in the youth workspace, and it's a really exciting opportunity for us to have this survey. I had the privilege when I was the CEO of the Forum for Youth Investment to mount a much more informal survey of the youth work field back in 2006. And I'll drop the link to it in the chat. It's so old that I had to go to the Wayback Machine and find it so I could get the link to put in the chat. But at that point, we really were looking at just basic understanding of how we can professionalize this workforce and who they are. We really didn't have any sense of who they were. And so the organizations that worked on this were the Forum for Youth Investment. We took the lead research role, along with the National Collaboration for Youth, the National Institute for Out of School Time, and the National Afterschool Association. And NAA had done a national survey through their state network of about 5,000 after-school workers to find out who they were. And we had gone through youth development intermediaries who serve a slightly older population in 8 cities to do sort of in-depth understanding of what they are, who the field was. And just a couple of things that we learned, because I think they'll still be relevant. First of all, we really learned that youth workers obviously come from a variety of backgrounds and professions. There is no official path into youth work. That said, they are quite professional. 2/3 of them have at least an associate's degree. More than half of them had a bachelor's degree or an advanced degree, all kinds of degrees they were coming from. The thing that was interesting was that the youth work field at that point in time, and it'll be interesting to see if it's still there, really sort of had a hump in the middle of it. You had a lot of people who were coming in their 20s, they disappeared in their 30s and 40s, and then they came back in their late 40s and 50s. And that's really about needing to make money. It's about the compensation challenges of the field. But we learned that they were highly satisfied, highly motivated, and moved around a lot. The average stay in a job was under 2 years. And that was because you have to, if you don't have a field that advances on its own, where you have a career pathway, you end up changing jobs inside the field to get $1 more an hour or to get a little bit better hours or healthcare. And so we're really confident that this time around, we're going to learn a lot more about the field, but we're also going to expand the field. And Jill is going to show you the range of roles that we're talking about as we think about after school organizations. But I wanted to share a couple of previews from the survey of folks who have on the survey so far. These are just pulled randomly. They've been anonymized a little bit, but they show you diversity of who's in the field. So first, one respondent was an African-American male in his 60s in the Eastern United States, currently working full-time as a staff person, working directly with young people as a site leader for a national nonprofit organization. He was formerly in the military. He started working in the youth fields because he wanted to work with kids. And he has an associate's degree and 3 to 5 professional certifications. When asked what's important for the field, he said the most important thing for the future of the youth fields is to keep good people and pay them accordingly. The second example is a Hispanic female in her 30s in the Southwestern US. She's also working full-time as a staff person, but she's an organizational leader for a regional nonprofit, so she doesn't work directly with young people. She started her work, however, in the youth fields, in part because she participated in the programs as a child and youth. So she started in the field and then moved up. She has a master's degree, but no professional certification. And when asked what the most important thing was, she said the future of the youth workforce is that we need to grow our own. And I think there's a lot in that sentence. So this is a really important study for us to get done because we're thinking about all the people. We broaden the places where young people can find these essential workers. And we really broaden the definitions of possibilities of what they could be doing when they go into these places with these people. So I'm going to let Jill talk about that first. But before I turn to Polly about why the Wallace Foundation invested in this initiative, I want to both, if it's appropriate, thank Polly for basically the Wallace Foundation supporting the readiness projects, because when we did the readiness projects, one of the first things that we did was to give a little planning grant to get this survey started. So I'm very proud that it's moved on. I'm proud that Polly continued to support it and believe in it, and I'll hand it to Polly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Polly Singh. I'm a Senior Program Officer at the Wallace Foundation. For those of you who don't know Wallace, we are a national foundation based in New York. Our mission is to foster equity and improvements in learning and enrichment for young people and in the arts for everyone. I'm so grateful to be on this panel. I really admire all of my colleagues on this panel, and I've appreciated the lasting relationship that we've had with Karen at the forum, Jill and Uzma. I really admire the work that you're doing in the field. And I really cannot say that Wallace can take the credit for this project because we were actually building on the legacy of other work in the field. This project was actually originally funded through a feasibility study by the Bechtel Foundation. Rebecca led that effort. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that we're really contributing to a legacy of work of other foundation and other practitioner researchers and other stakeholders in the field who are heavily invested in this effort. Wallace has built a longstanding interest, history in supporting infrastructure of out-of-school time learning. We funded a number of different ways to support the field, quality measures, tools for after-school programs, and those kinds of things, and have supported intermediary organizations between 2003, 2017. But, you know, workforce has always been an evergreen issue for us, right? We've seen that, and we know that the implication of workforce and the factors of workforce, the critical relationship that those jobs fulfill, right? Like having that role, that point of service at the student level, the connection between the system and the student level and the young people is such an important indicator of quality and quality services. And so that's why we supported this project. It made sense. And this was also when we made the decision to support this work. It was before ESSER. It was before policies were actually shaped and funding was made available, that large infusion of funding that we saw last year. So even before that, but what we were noticing is that these policies were not informed and did not take into account the important perspective of folks on the ground. And we wanted to make this, and that's why we invested in the study, because we wanted to bring those perspectives to light. I'm here for questions and to follow on, but I also don't want to take up too much time from my fellow panelists who have a lot to say on the subject.
Thanks, Polly, and thanks again for your modest leadership in this space. Well, I'm going to turn it to you and take your time, because it's really important for people to understand what the survey is, what we're gathering, where we're going with it. So I'm going to turn it to you.
Awesome. Okay. Let's get this going. We're going to get into some of the specifics here of the survey that you guys have heard a lot about. Some of this will be new for you, and some of this it'll be a rehash, but excited to talk a little bit about some of the specifics here. So the Power of Us Workforce Survey, what is it? Well, we're working with partners, several partners actually, to administer a national survey called the Power of Us Workforce Survey, really to capture the critical role that youth work professionals carry in young people's lives. And we know how important the work is that youth work professionals do, but we don't really have that broader knowledge, context, and holistic understanding of their experiences and their career paths. And so the survey is a way for us to gain those critical insights into who makes up these fields, where they work, what they do, and what supports they need to keep doing the transformative work that they do with young people. The whole idea is that if we know more about this workforce, then we can do more to support them and retain them. So getting into some specific use cases, things that we think we'll be able to do with the data, reasons to keep diving into the workforce. One is to actually map the workforce in the youth fields to really help us paint a rich description of both the breadth and the depth of the people who make up this workforce. Another is to identify trends that might require additional research for understanding, really to elevate these issues that we hope to dig into deeper as a field. For example, developing pipelines for leaders of color in the youth fields. Another is to inform practices for future satisfaction. So what are the job factors that lead to satisfaction, and how can we use that information to think about how we recruit and retain and support the workforce? Another is to provide reliable information to inform the rapidly changing policy and practice landscape. One of the biggest use cases I've heard from organizations on the ground is really an interest in using this information to advocate for funding for professional development for their workforce. Another is understanding the pipeline pathways and opportunities that support the workforce. So I think we've all heard anecdotally stories about who's doing this work and how they got there, but it is mostly anecdotal at this point. And so we really want to understand, how do people come to the youth fields jobs? Why do they stay? Why do they leave? Why, what are their different career paths? How committed are they to doing this for their professional career? And then lastly, diving deeply into and describing any promising models that we can find that emerge through the survey and the case series that we're doing with NIAS to really try to understand any of these things and elevate them for the field further. So who are the youth fields, and who is it that we're talking about? Really, we're describing the youth fields as adults who work with youth outside of the school setting. And we are using what we believe is a broad and hopefully pretty inclusive definition for this group. So this includes after school and summer learning programs, museum education. It also includes juvenile justice initiatives and housing authorities and organizations who also often have programs that serve young people. And our goal for the survey is really to learn as much about these adults as we can so that we can elevate them as a unified workforce and contribute to the practice, policy, and research to really better support them. So who should take the survey? Well, we are targeting folks who currently work or volunteer directly with youth, those who currently lead youth serving organizations and programs, and those who have worked or volunteered in these roles in the past 5 years. And that includes our friends in summer camps who worked as recently as last year, but maybe aren't working during the school year. So we do have a broad kind of swath of people that we're really trying to hear from. And you'll see the survey topics here that I've hinted on. So the survey includes information about, or questions that get at who these people are, where do they work, what do they do. It does dig into some of those questions around career pathways, what professional supports they receive and would like to receive, and just their general experiences on the job. So here are two examples of some of the stories that we're sharing. So we are using a multi-pronged communication strategy that we're doing with collaborative communications to try to reach the youth fields work and volunteer force. And I should note that these are not folks who took the survey necessarily, but representative of those who could. And these are people who are who've been willing to share their stories with us. Our goals with the communications campaign are really to, one, increase awareness of the study. We want as many people to know about the study as possible, but also to help people self-identify as a member of this youth fields workforce. A lot of it can feel very disparate, and so this is one attempt to kind of bring these different groups together. Also to encourage participation in the survey and hopefully kind of nurturing a sense of duty that you share the survey with your peers. And then I'd say the last communications campaign goal is really around giving a voice and trying to validate this multi-sector field of professionals and volunteers who are supporting our youth. And now for something that is, I think, pretty exciting. So we've talked about how the survey has this incredible potential to inform the work that we're all doing to support the workforce with real data to back up of like some of the things that we think anecdotally are true, and maybe teach us some things that we don't already know. So I'm happy to share some preview data. This is what we know about the after school sector so far. It's just the after school sector, but these are the top 5 answers that we have in terms of how we can better support the workforce through their work environment. So this can evolve and change as we get more responses, but what we're hearing is the number 1 thing is to improve pay and or benefits. Number 2 is a request for less stress. I understand that. More support from leadership, more opportunity for advancement, and more opportunities for collaboration. And similarly for that same group, and again, it's evolving. This is just what we know so far. We asked how we can better support the workforce through professional learning. And so they shared their top 5 requests as of right now were around resources. So funding materials to participate or use the learning, offering professional learning at convenient times, offering more professional learning through their own organization, having professional learning offered at convenient locations, and then time off to participate in or use the learning. So these are really very preliminary findings that we're coming up, that we're sharing right now. A lot more to share in the months ahead, but hopefully this gives you an example, like one, hopefully makes you excited about this, because I was very excited to see the data and how we can actually start thinking about ways that we can use this now that we have a little bit, in terms of examples of what the survey can tell us. So I'll stop there and see if anyone's got any questions.
Well, I've got a question for you, Jill, while we're seeing what comes into the chat. Can you go back to the slide that has all the different roles on it?
You got it.
Because I think this is such an important piece. When we talk about out of school staff, we're really talking about out of classroom staff. When you look at these organizations, these roles, a lot of these people are in the school building, in the school day, doing things, success coaches, etc., but they are not the classroom teacher. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit about how you're making sure that as we're putting this survey out, we're capturing those people who may be in the building, but are not in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we've been trying to do is identify champions in each of these sectors These are people who can help us raise awareness of the survey, build some credibility for the survey, to try to reach some of these people who may not see themselves normally as being part of this group. And I will say one thing in particular that we did that I thought was really useful was being able to talk to the folks that were part of the National Partnership for Student Success, because there are a lot of people in that group who are working with young people during the school day, but maybe wouldn't have seen themselves as part of this group. So being able, I think, to talk to groups like that who are connected with folks who work in the school building, but maybe aren't doing school day work, or they're doing school day and outside of the school day work. Things like that have been super helpful, like making those connections with organizations who can reach those populations and see the value pretty quickly, I think, in terms of what the survey can say and how it can elevate the role of the field as a whole, but also it can elevate some of these sectors that maybe people don't necessarily think would fit in this group.
That's great. I think it's really important for us, as we're sort of pushing this forward and trying to get to these allied youth fields, for us to really think about the fact that positive youth development as an approach for working with young people, which is really the approach that says we start with relationships, we start with what young people are interested in, et cetera. And that's what can happen with these roles in settings that are not the classroom. They can even happen in the school with extracurricular activities are listed. But it's really important for us to understand that what undergirds all these different organizations and all these different fields is the idea that you're working from a relationship base, an asset base, an interest-driven base to help young people. And so I think it's time for us to sort of elevate back up the fact that positive youth development is an approach. It's an approach that's been validated by the federal government. There's an official definition of positive youth development that the Interagency Working Group on Youth Programs uses. And so it's not that we don't think teachers can't use a youth development approach, it's that teaching in and of itself is something that's bound to a different set of guidelines. So now that we've got this up, talk about how people can get it out. Is there a communications toolkit? What can we do to get this out there?
Yes, I love that you asked that. I will drop a couple of resources in the chat. I'll drop a link to the website, which just has a wealth of information if you want to dig into a little bit more about what we mean when we talk about champions. But we also do have a really robust communications toolkit that our partners at Collaborative Communications have put together. They've got sample tweets, sample LinkedIn messages, depending on whatever you use. I am not good at social media, but they've covered it for you. They also have some really great examples of like elevator pitches, or ways that you can integrate it into your ideas of ways that you can integrate it into your newsletters or trainings, all of that good stuff. So I will drop all of that into the chat.
Okay. And we do have a couple of questions that have come in since we have a few minutes. The first question is, does the survey indicate whether people desire to learn more about topics related to youth work or desire to transition into another field? Are we asking those kind of questions?
Yeah, I think we do have questions on related to that. We have questions about like where they came from, what did they work, where did they work, where else have they worked besides the youth fields, what other kind of adjacent areas, and whether, how committed they are to staying in the field. What was the other question?
I think those are related.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the question of, is there a desire to transition to another field, it speaks to the question that the statement that was made in one of the profiles of, we need to grow our own. The idea that people just drop into youth work while they're waiting to go on to something else is something that we need to counter.
Yeah, and I think,
go ahead.
Oh, one other thing, we are trying to get people who've left the field to take the survey. So if you know folks who have left the field, they're not doing this sort of work anymore, we do still want to hear from them, because we want to know why. And where they went, and I know we've got people who move in and out, some people who stay for a long time, and this is it. But we're really interested in kind of documenting or learning more about all of those different pathways.
I'm going to jump in because I saw another question there, Karen, as well, just to clarify. Jill, there was a question about social work and foster care and if those folks fit in.
Yeah, so I think we haven't really had that many. We haven't really been actively reaching out to those groups right now.
I think it's because there are studies on that portion of the field.
Yeah,
is that right?
exactly. There's a lot more out there on that particular field and their pathways, and it's a lot less muddy than it is for some of these other groups.
Yeah, and I will add, just for context, in the official definition of youth work from the United Kingdom, which is where there is more formal, they actually make a distinction between social work, teaching, and youth work. Youth work sits in between those. And they even make a distinction between youth work, which is really for teenagers and young, and play work, which is for kids under 12. So there's a pretty sophisticated definition there. I think there's another question. Let's see. How can we provide career paths and advancement across organizations? And that's one of the things that you're going to ask. Many people hit a ceiling because they aren't going anywhere. So hopefully we'll get data on that.
Yeah, and I know that our friends at the National Institute on Out of School Time, and Betsy and Georgia are on this call. I know some of the work that they're doing with the perspectives that they're collecting will also help us, identify some examples of what's going on with that, because I do think it's going to vary quite a bit.
Great. And last question is, how many responses do you have so far? And are you going to disaggregate the data by race, age, reason, et cetera?
I just tried to answer it, but go ahead, Jill, in case you have a better answer.
Oh, I don't have an answer just yet on the number of responses, but I think as much as we can disaggregate to look at different sorts of trends, as long as we have good reasons for asking those sorts of questions and, being really thoughtful and about how we go about disaggregating the data. Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely love to see how, even job satisfaction, how does that vary by these different sectors? Are there certain sectors that have more professional supports built into the organization? I think there are a lot of really cool opportunities that we're going to have to dig further into the data. And I don't know if I don't think we've said this yet, but something that I think is really cool, and I say this all the time, is that whenever you get data, if it's any good, it's going to make you it'll answer some of your questions, but it's going to make you ask more nuanced questions. And what's cool is that the survey results will be available at the end of this, de-identified as a public data set that people will be able to use to seek out, think about ways to answer their practice, policy, and research related questions. So I'm really excited about that part too. So yeah, more to come.
Good.
Do you see the
one more question? Go, Rebecca.
Do you see that question from Lakshmi in the chat?
Yeah, I did. So I didn't see it at the top of the screen. So last question, is there a detail about what kinds of stress out of school time professionals are seeking to alleviate? For example, in Indiana, they learn through listening sessions that the stress is due to racism in their workplace.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how, I don't think that we dive too deeply into specific types of stress, but I do wonder if some of the open-ended questions within the survey might get at that. Good. Yeah, some of those things might be elevated that way.
Excellent. All right, well, this was exciting. And as we move into hearing from Uzma talk about how to get more people doing this survey, I think we also want to point out that youth serving organizations can make a power pledge. So you're going to tell us a little bit more about that before we move on?
Oh, yeah, of course. So one of the things that you guys can do, let me go ahead and get this link. If you're interested, we are seeking out organizations. Let me make sure that this is working.
I got it in there.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Too many things open at one time. That is why my computer crashes on me all the time. But so programs and organizations that currently employ and support individuals in the youth fields are invited to make a power pledge for the Power of Us survey. So those who are interested in contributing may be eligible to receive an honorarium for their support. So we're really looking for organizations who, like I said, employ the youth fields workforce professionals and or have youth fields volunteers that are willing to commit to recruiting a targeted number of people to complete the survey. We have a power pledge form that Rebecca is dropping in the chat. And then, if you're interested, take a look at that, and you'll, receive notification from our team to confirm your power pledge level and move forward. But what's really cool is, for example, if you think that you could recruit at least 250 new people to take the survey, then we're offering an honorarium for that, and that will qualify you to actually receive de-identified results for your organization. So it's a really cool opportunity to say, hey, we're really committed to this. We're going to keep pushing this, or we're going to push this in new ways. And then, the honorarium will, honor you for your time. We do have a limited opportunities for that. So the sooner you apply, we are making those choices on a rolling basis. So the sooner you apply, the better. And then, if you get over 250 responses, then you get your very own data set to play with.
That's amazing. That would certainly give me an incentive if I had an organization to work with at the moment. And I want to take that opportunity to segue to Uzma and ask her, you're going to share an incredible amount of strategies for getting the survey out, which is just amazing. But before you do that, can you tell us why it was so important for you to get your numbers up? What motivated you to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Uzma Azhar, and I am the Senior Policy Analyst at the Georgia Statewide Afterschool Network. And as you can imagine by our name, our mission is to make sure that there are high quality after school and summer learning programs throughout the state of Georgia so that every child has the resources to thrive and succeed no matter where they are. And as part of advocating for the field, it goes without saying that we have to advocate for the professionals that make that work possible. And as Jill mentioned earlier, we have a lot of anecdotal information about issues with recruitment and retainment, but we really wanted to be armed with data so that we can make data-driven decisions. We can have that information to form our strategies in terms of how we're supporting the field and its professionals and their professional development as well. And so because of that, we really made this all team members on deck situation, because this survey is going to help us be armed with that information, not only to inform our strategies, but also to advocate for the field. And we used a number of things, including more targeted outreach, as well as broad outreach. And Karen, I can go into all the details now unless you have like a specific question. All right, you are muted, but I'm going to take that as go ahead. Okay, so first of all, as with any project, one of the things that we had to decide was that there needed to be a point person to keep track of everything, to make sure that outreach was being done to its fullest extent. So I was given that responsibility. So our outreach consisted of multiple things. Thanks to the communications toolkit that the collaborative provided, we were able to do a lot of general outreach, including through our newsletter, our email blasts, as well as social media. And in addition to that, we also engaged in targeted communications. So for that, what we did was we identified certain stakeholder groups, including funders such as the United Ways, Family Connection Partnerships, 21st Century Program Directors, and other partner organizations that would actually help us promote the survey. And to be able to really make that effective, one of the things that we did was we created a much shorter and much more curated communications toolkit. So instead of like sending them everything that was available to us, we just made a one-page document, because then it would be easy for them to like send it to their whether it's their like grantees, whether it's their employees. It just made it easier. Everyone on the team was assigned specific groups to tackle, and that really made it a lot easier. The other thing that everyone on the team was assigned was making sure that they are incorporating information about the survey in all of our trainings, all of our webinars, any kind of event that we held. Again, I cannot speak highly enough of the communications toolkit that was provided. We made sure to fully make use of that. We had a slide in all of our workshops, all of our trainings at the end, and we had talking points created for team members so that they were armed with consistent information. In addition to that, we also offered for a GSAN team member to attend people's organizations' team meetings to come speak about the survey in case folks had questions. One of the major concerns that we've heard from folks is this going to take too long? Is this going to be anonymous? So a lot of it was just making sure that we communicated very clearly that it is completely anonymous and it is up to you whether or not you want to share your information if you want to sign up for the raffle that AIR is holding. In addition to that, all team members also have the survey and a little bit of information about it in our signatures so that every single time we're communicating with someone, they are seeing that. We also made tremendous use of it during our conference. So we had a conference that was attended by approximately 600 people back in September. And as I mentioned, we included information about it in all of our workshops. But in addition to that, the opening lunch session that we had, we made sure to give people an overview of what the survey was, as well as provide time for them to complete it during that lunch session. In addition to that, we had 2 breakfast sessions where we provided people breakfast and gave them time to complete it then. And we also had signs all over the conference center, making sure to promote the survey to folks, making sure that the QR code was there. And we created little Power of Us buttons that we handed out to folks to as an incentive. And all the GSAN team members made sure to wear it ourselves as well, just to make sure that we are promoting it as much as possible. In addition to that, we've also created postcards with QR codes and made sure that they were handed out at multiple tables at the conference, and just a lot of follow-up with folks, especially like the targeted communications and making sure that we are present to answer any questions that folks have. So those are the major things that we've used. The only other thing I can add is we also held a forum online to make sure that if people had questions, they could come and ask us. We made sure that we gave people information on how to incorporate the survey into their team meetings and how to send it out to employees in the newsletter. And we opened it up for questions in case people had any questions, but yeah, that covers it.
That's an incredible list of, I heard it once before when we were on our prep session, and I'm even more impressed hearing it again. An incredible list of things to do to get people motivated. I'm just curious, as before we go into our breakout groups, once people took the survey, what did they think about it? Did they come back together and have conversations? Was there any buzz around, not just was it easy or hard to take, or was it too long, but the kind of questions asked? Did they spark interest in folks and thinking about how to make the workforce better?
Absolutely. So a lot of folks were very interested in how accessible the data will be. And so that was one of the things that we made sure to emphasize, is the fact that we will have access to a database that will be anonymized and disaggregated. And that was a major incentive for folks. And they were really asking like, when will we hear about it? When will we see this data? And there were generally positive responses in terms of folks who actually filled out this survey, because I think they thought it was a bigger task than it actually was. But I think initially when you tell someone this is a workforce survey, it's going to ask about like where you came into the youth development field, like what made you leave, and like all of those questions. It seems a lot more cumbersome than it is. And so our main strategy throughout has been like constant and clear communication, letting people know that like this will be completely anonymous, and this is a way for us to collect information to really support the field.
That's great. And I just want to emphasize that anytime we can get the numbers up to the point that you get that data back, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. When we did the survey with the 8 communities, a lot of changes happened because they got their data back. They were able to sit and look at it and say, "Whoa, wow, we didn't know that." So it's so important to get this data back. So thank you so much for that. I think we're going to take this enthusiasm into small group discussions to talk about how the data can be useful to your organizations or communities. And if you can think of any other ways to do it other than the 17 ways that Uzma shared, brainstorm other ways that we can help promote the survey. I'm not sure who's moving us into small groups, so I will turn it to whoever's doing that for us.
Yes, Jesse's going to move us into groups. So it'll be about 15 minutes there. You'll have a facilitator with a couple prompts, and then we'll just come out to close at the end. But thank you so much, Uzma, for sharing the incredible list of motivating ways to get it out there. So I'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Welcome back. Hope you had good, productive conversations, coming up with ideas and sharing how you're planning to use the survey data and promote it. I'm going to just share my screen to give you the QR code. So anyone here who has worked with youth, there we go, slideshow. Here is the QR code. This is also in the communications toolkit, so you can just use that to scan and go ahead and fill out the survey yourself. If you've been working at a youth serving organization in the last 5 years, hope you will go ahead and do that, and then get this out to all of your colleagues and friends who are in the field doing this work. If anyone would like to share an idea they're excited about of how they're planning to promote it, please share it in the chat, because I think that'll be great and inspiring for everyone else. So I welcome you to share some of the ideas you brainstormed in your small groups. Couple of closing thoughts. I'm just gonna stop sharing here. If you have any questions in general, you can reach out to the Power of Us team, and I'll put the email available to you. And if you'd like anything customized for your organization, there's that's an option for you. We've got collaborative communications in the team to help do that for you. And I hope you're walking away today just to inspired about the potential for what this data can provide to the field as an advocacy tool, as a professional learning tool, better support the good people doing this work, and support them in whatever career they end up going in. Because as I heard from Connie and my group, she's seen anyone essentially who has worked with young people earlier in their career is more effective at what they do now, and that there's a difference, and that shows up whether they're a researcher or a social worker or a teacher, or even I'd say something unrelated. So I think that's an inspiring message. So a couple notes from Grantmakers for Education. Our next monthly call will be on Friday, December 6th. It's an exciting conversation with Campfire to learn about their #EmblemJob 2022. This is a journey story of an organization that's been confronting its own the harm that they've done to Indigenous communities and cultures through its own practices historically as an organization and even currently, and how they've been reckoning with the harm that they've done, and partnering with Indigenous communities to do better. So I hope you'll join us for that interesting conversation where they really share the learning that they've been doing along the way. And then for the funders on the call and EdFunder members, we'll have our next funder meetup on I got the dates wrong. I'm sorry. December 6th is the funder meetup. December 16th is the monthly call. So please join us for that. And at the December 6th funder meetup, we'll be talking about a variety of challenges the field is facing, and what is the role that funders have in helping address those challenges. And they're will be responding to recommendations from field leaders that they've made to funders. So I look forward to seeing you all again next month. Hope you have some time off next week to celebrate however you'd like, however you do with family and friends, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you to all of our speakers.